bonjour, chers...
Good morning, dear members of the committee. Well, there are a sufficient number of us, so we deem that we have a quorum. So please be seated. I hope that you spent a nice evening in Paris, for those who have traveled to Paris. And I welcome you to the second day of the 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee. And I'm pleased to continue our fruitful exchanges that we've started yesterday. We will move on to item 10 on the agenda, devoted to international cooperation. It's one of the essential pillars of the 1970 Convention. Now, fighting the trafficking of cultural property requires coordinated actions beyond borders, sectors, and institutions. This is the reason why UNESCO places partnership at the core of its actions within the framework of the Convention, bringing together state parties, international organizations, specialized institutions, professional networks, and civil society around common responsibility, that is safeguarding cultural property. Without further ado, I will now give the floor to the Secretariat to present partners and to introduce this subject. And we will leave our seats and allow you to pursue the discussions.
Delegates, members of the committee, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this international cooperation panel. As said the chair, fighting illicit trafficking of cultural property, as we know, requires interconnected, multidisciplinary and internationally coordinated responses. The growing sophistication of trafficking networks, the proliferation of conflict zones and emergency situations, the rise of online trafficking, evolving challenges, and at the same time, budgetary constraints across organizations further highlight the need for and the importance of close, efficient, and sustained cooperation among all actors in addressing this global scourge. In this context, in the past years, UNESCO has continued to strengthen cooperation with its partners, and you see that across the years also the partners are growing as we have this inscribed on the agenda. We all have a crucial role in providing information, education, training, development of tools, and facilitate return and restitution. Our cooperation has produced tangible results with our partners, and our complementary mandates enable us to strengthen approaches to promote innovation, facilitate cooperation, and ensure that responses to illicit trafficking of cultural property remain effective and adapted to evolving challenges. I'm now very pleased to invite to the podium our partners that I will call with the name of the organization and the name of the representative. And we are very pleased to have this session to report on ongoing cooperation and on future perspectives. I have now the pleasure to invite to the panel from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, Mrs. Alice Simon, nuclear physicist within the Department of Nuclear Sciences and Applications. And please come with your plate so that you can sit on the podium and everybody can also see your plate. We have then the pleasure also to welcome Marina Schneider. She is juriste principale et dépositaire des traités auprès de l'Institut international pour l'unification du droit privé, UNIDROIT. We have, please, good morning. We have then the pleasure to welcome Sophie Delpierre. She is the head of the Department for the Protection of Heritage within ICOM. Good morning, Conseil International des Musées. We have then Murat Yildiz. Trafficking and Cultural Property Lead at the Global Program on Criminal Network Disruption of the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, UNODC. Good morning, Murat. And we have Corrado Cartesi, coordinateur de l'unité œuvres d'art, the Works of Art unit at Interpol. Very pleased to welcome Corrado. And we have online our colleague Elsa Urtis-Verea. She is project manager at ALIF, l'Alliance internationale pour la protection du patrimoine. She will, you can see, may see her in a second on the screen. Okay. Ellie online? Oh, she's online. Great. So without further ado, I would just perhaps like to present the format of the session. We will have 2 rounds of questions and discussion among members of the panel, and then we will, I will pass the floor for the committee members. So if you have questions or comments, so that we can engage in the discussion. My first question would go to Alice Simon. UNESCO and the EIEA are currently cooperating throughout the Eurasia regional project to strengthen capacities in authentication and provenance research using nuclear analytical techniques. In a context where provenance issues, falsification and illicit circulation are becoming increasingly complex, how can scientific expertise and analytical methodologies contribute more effectively to the implementation of the 1970 Convention and support operational efforts against illicit trafficking? Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Suna. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, dear colleagues, and thank you very much for inviting me and giving the opportunity to speak on behalf of the International Atomic Energy Agency on our collaborations also with other partners and perspectives, of course. You may know that the main mandate of the International Atomic Energy Agency is the peaceful uses of nuclear technology. And possibly you hear about us in the news every day related to nuclear security, nuclear energy, but I would like to speak about our work, what we are also doing at a scientific level, how we are supporting the member states in the preservation of cultural and natural heritage with nuclear analytical techniques. Sorry, the next slide, please. So here you can see the 4 main pillars of our work. I'm not going, and we don't have time to speak about in very much detail, but we are doing irradiation treatment with electrons, X-ray for conservation and consolidation of artifacts. We are also doing analysis of chemical composition, structure, quantitative analysis, 2D, 3-dimensional analysis of artifacts to characterize them. We are using the same techniques with some twist for the authentication of fake and looted artifacts as well. I am going to speak about this a little bit later in the next slide. And of course, it is a primary objective that all these investigations are safe for the artifacts, so we are not causing any alterations, any damage, and we have also a program on this. Next slide, please. So the first and most important tool we are doing is research and development, technology development globally. We have partners from all over the world, and we are using various techniques as accelerators from research reactors, synchrotrons, X-ray techniques, portable XRF techniques, and so on. And maybe you can see a little bit on the maps our partners really globally. We are also working with international organizations as UNESCO and UNICRI, UNODC, Interpol, and the World Customs Organization so far together, especially for the Eurasia project. And we are looking forward to enhance our collaboration and also open up new avenues for such collaboration as well. Our main programmatic activities will be based in the next years on 2 key projects we are just starting. First one is preservation and protection of cultural heritage through synergistic authentication and provenance. And this is the topic of this convention, so let me just briefly mention the first photo, you can see several paintings were seized by the French customs. And our colleagues were asked to do some authentication to tell them whether these are fake or original paintings. And they used the radiocarbon method, which was able to say that actually these paintings were made very recently, in the last years. So this exactly could prove that these were fakes. So basically this was a workshop preparing fake paintings, and with the help of radiocarbon methods, our colleagues could help also to the police and in the legal investigations. In the middle image, you see, and I'm sure that there are also several colleagues in this room who knows more about the Dacian bracelets story than I do, as they were looted, and they are very prestigious, about 2,000 years old bracelets, golden bracelets, and they were showing up in several auction houses. And then together with the government of Romania, with Interpol, with local police, and with the National Museum of Romania, there were very strong efforts for the recoveries. From the scientific perspectives, what we can do, we can analyze these bracelets and of course other metal and other objects. And we can also trace back their origin from where the gold ore came, from which mine, and that can be located together where they were manufactured, and this also confirmed the location, the locality. And then the third is another example. This is an Iranian sword of 3,000 years old, and this was seized by the British Customs. And actually, they were asked, together with the British Museum and the ISIS Neutron Center, to do some analysis with the agreement of the Iranian government. And the analysis explored that the sword itself was authentic, but there were some modifications with the blade, some new materials were also applied. Also, they identified the glue. And I am showing this example because with neutrons, we can look inside the objects. We don't need to cut them, but we know also the internal structure as well. So, and actually this was an example of illicit trafficking, but also with the modification, some alteration to improve the value, the market value of the object. We have many, many other cases, and you can check our website for such. The other project will be the development of innovative nuclear analytical approaches supported by artificial intelligence and open science for heritage science. I think today we cannot exclude the use of artificial intelligence, and we are also applying in our techniques to make it more accessible, more efficient, especially for imaging, digital imaging, and developing digital platforms. Next one, please. Of course, it's very important, beside the technological development, capacity building, and knowledge transfer. And you can see the photos from Kuwait when we conducted a training course for the Arazia project. And our colleagues trained the scientists on site for using portable XRF techniques for the analysis and so on. Of course, we are also doing and developing e-learning materials, and we are very pleased for UNESCO for inviting us to develop a course on using nuclear analytical techniques for their mock e-learning. And Lena Basser, my colleague, is here behind, who made all this. And you can find, if you visit that site, that e-learning, you will find more examples on objects subject to illicit trafficking. And of course, we have at the IEA also our e-learnings, and I just would like to mention that these e-learnings are not for nuclear scientists, primarily for you, for heritage professionals, for law enforcement experts to show through case studies what we can do, and our nuclear scientists can do the job, of course. And the next avenue is building partnerships. So next slide, next please. Partnership, outreach, and dissemination, where we are also working together with UNESCO, visiting each other, cross-fertilizing each other networks. And in case you wish to have more information about our work, please visit the IE Accelerator Knowledge portal. You can find the QR code there, connect easily, and to see what we are doing in the field. Next slide, please. And as we are United Nations, we would like to mention, and I really would like to deliver this message, 32 member states, with the leadership of France, delivered a joint statement at the IEA Board of Governors last year, November, where they requested the IEA's working together with UNESCO and its partners, especially in preserving cultural and natural heritage, and also for natural and cultural heritage protection. On the other hand, next slide, please. Next, please. In these weeks, and we'll end this week, there is the review conference of the parties to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. And this is using peaceful use of nuclear technology. And again, 33 member states with the leadership of France published a paper and put this topic as protecting cultural heritage, as using nuclear technology for the protection of cultural heritage. They asked again to call with UNESCO. So it's a very high-level United Nations MPT conference, and actually also with other United Nations organizations, of course, also with the academia and research institutes and so on. So next slide, please. As our vision, we find that there are several opportunities to work together, and we really would like to see that this will go into action. And we would like to build together partnership with UNESCO and its partners to cross-fertilize our networks, to extend and diversify stakeholder base. We also would like to ask them to provide knowledge for synergistic authentication and provenance, because our scientific techniques is just one step in this puzzle. And we would like to jointly develop novel technologies as well for improved protection of heritage objects. We would like to ask UNESCO Hub to develop ethical guidelines, not only for our dealers, but our scientific colleagues in the laboratories really need this kind of help, because when somebody shows up with an object and asks for authentication, how can we handle whether that's somebody as part of the illicit trafficking, or, this is a big issue. And then also develop jointly an AI and digital platform for improved imaging and databases, work together for improved capacity building and knowledge transfer, and develop jointly e-learnings. We would like to be happy to be part of UNESCO Illicit Trafficking Toolkit and others as well. And the last one is not just because I don't know, but I hope that there will be some discussion also and suggestion from your side. Last, and thank you much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice Simon. And yes, I hope there will be discussion. We would just need perhaps, if we want to have 2 rounds of intervention, I would ask, please, my other panelists to also skip perhaps in two their interventions. Thank you very much for the very interesting illustration of your work and of our cooperation and the inspiring ideas. I would now like to turn to UNIDROIT, Marina Schneider, and I will switch to French. Alors qu'UNIDROIT
As UNIDROIT celebrates its centenary this year, this long history also allows us to look back on several decades of cooperation with UNESCO in the fight against the illicit trafficking of cultural property. This cooperation has focused on modal provisions. In 2011, discussions as well on cooperation with the art market, and more recently, UNIDROIT's work on orphaned objects. In your opinion, what lessons or significant learnings have you gleaned from this past and most recent cooperation, particularly in the light of new challenges? Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to this panel of partners. It's always a great pleasure for me to get together and to realize that indeed UNIDROIT this year is celebrating its centenary. In April, we turned 100 years old, and so that's 100 years of activities and partnerships. So next week we'll start celebrating this century with a big celebration with our partners, and we'll have the great pleasure of receiving UNESCO. For this centenary, each area of work is working on a white paper, which will allow us to take stock and also to look towards the future, how to do better, how to do differently, how to follow up with the new trends. And so I think the major learnings of that cooperation between UNIDROIT and UNESCO and other partners is that we've been able to show across the decades, I think the first documents that show a partnership with UNESCO are from 1958. It shows that the fight against illicit trafficking can only be efficient with this collaboration with private law, with international law, and operationalized cooperation. The 1970 Convention is the framework that established cooperation between public and private entities. UNIDROIT, on the requirement of UNESCO, has established norms in law to avoid that trafficking actors benefit from loopholes because of differences between the law and legislative framework of each countries. So that's a perfect example of collaboration. Second main achievement, I think, has to do with the concept of responsibility. At the start, we only talked about responsibility and obligations in the perspective of states. With time, this responsibility has become shared among actors. So dealers, online platforms, and in a few weeks, we'll have a conference in Rome on measures to fight against money laundering and terrorist financing and the art market, and UNESCO will be present with us. So the due diligence has become at the center of what we do. Yesterday, someone said due diligence needs to be obligatory, mandatory all the time, and it is since 1995 for the members who have ratified the convention, and for other institutions that have ratified that UNIDROIT convention. And so it is now essential to build a culture of prevention all across the entire process and lifetime of the objects. There's also a new set of priorities at the international level. For a long time, we were mostly concerned about the stealing and the buying of illicit objects. Today, we're talking about provenance and origin, and also the lack of origin. A number of objects are in circulation, and we don't know exactly their origin. It doesn't mean necessarily that they have a link with illicit trafficking. But today, we realize that an object that does not have a provenance established cannot be sold, cannot be published, cannot be exhibited. It's against the culture that we are living in today. And so today we need to assure traceability, but we also want to maintain access to culture and diffusion of our heritage. And for that, we need mechanisms, and that's what we are trying to do, which is not an easy task. I will conclude this first session, or this first part, by reiterating how much that experience that has been gained by UNESCO, UNIDROIT, and its partners shows the importance of having coordinated responses. We all have different mandates, but we need to find the common ground to have a multidisciplinary approach to include museums, researchers, civil society, to find tools they can evolve and adapt to the new technological and geopolitical transformations today. Thank you. Thank you, Marina. And I will hold on to that word. You just said museum, and you explained the idea of due diligence as well, and so that's a perfect segue to give the floor to ICOM, which is also a very long partnership with the UNESCO, which was reinforced recently with the signing of a new memorandum. So we're talking about capacity building, due diligence, raising awareness among museum professionals. So according to you, Sophie, what are the new priorities, the main priorities in cooperation today? Thank you very much for that question, dear Suna, dear Secretariat, dear members of the committee, dear observers, dear colleagues online or present in this room. Thank you very much for the invitation on this panel. It's always a great pleasure for us to be here, and also we're very interested to know where we are at with the implementation of the convention by the states, but also by international organizations. And this meeting always allows us to build a stronger relationship. And so last year, when we had the statutory meetings at UNESCO, the ADG for Culture and the president of ICOM signed this memorandum of understanding from one part from UNESCO, and on the other side, this professional organization, so organizations of museum professionals, which is ICOM, because it's true that we've been collaborating for many decades now, but now it is this officialization, formalization allows us to go further, because before we signed that document, we had to draft it together, and it allowed us to highlight certain aspects of our joint work. Without going into many details, I'd like to base my intervention on these three work axes: so education, protection of cultural heritage, and integration of new technologies. On that first point, education, I'd like to go back today to the interest of that joint work between UNESCO and ICOM, between an intergovernmental organization and an organization that joins museums, and what is the point of us joining forces. We have all these training workshops, for example, and I'd like to remind all of us, even though we did mention it, the Western Balkan workshops and training that just ended with the MOOC that saw a huge participation, and I'd like to highlight the fact that it was an extremely good and professional, excellent work that gave birth to a tool. And we talked today about the fact that we had so many participants that signed up for this training. There's a lot of the work that we did together that really it culminates at this type of workshops, because UNESCO can add its strength by gathering the positive aspects of all member states, but also we're able to find with the International Cooperation Network, we have Interpol here and other partners, we can give meaning to all the tools that already exist. And so sometimes we have the participation of the Secretariat, of course, since this is also our big strength at ICOM is to send our regional representatives and our regional committees. We have done so in workshops organized by UNESCO in Africa, or our network, regional network, ICOM Africa, that sent on the ground the trainers needed for a certain topic. And so that's the big strength of our organization, is the associating of these two aspects, to be able to bring to the table the operational people and the decision-making people, so that we can work in a clear manner. Second point, and maybe you've seen that image before, but always use it as an example. We have our awareness raising tools and cooperation tools. So they're here. Of course, I won't go into details, but yesterday we talked about the deontologic, the ethical code, and we've been working on the Code of Ethics for Museums for many years. That this revision has been finalized and it's available online, and you can vote on this new version of the code in a month here during our annual meeting. And the General Assembly that will have to make a decision on that new version of the code. Without going into many details, I'd like to say, though, that the provisions that are relative to the protection of heritage have been reworked, and we've participated in the debates. We talk about due diligence, how to approach it. We are starting to talk about provenance and origin. The idea is, do we need to go further? Do we need to reorient a little bit our approach? And I can tell you more in a month if this code is adopted. But just know that this code is always evolving, and we talked about it yesterday when we talked about the implementation of the convention. But these are the tools that really add to the implementation of the convention at a different scale, in a different sector, but it's the same idea. The object ID, I won't talk much about it, but it is in the final phase. We've started to translate it in Pashto and Dari. The Red Esperu is ongoing, and for the Sudan project, it's also ongoing. For object ID, I'll be very, very short, but I never take the floor without talking about the importance of inventories. We talked about it when we talked about safety or security in museums, and maybe Interpol will go back to that question. You probably saw it going around in the media in many countries as a priority. Security in museums was a priority before, but it is even more so now. And it is high time to work seriously on that aspect. Object ID is still an ongoing project because we still are lacking a lot of inventory, and so ICOM has really been doubling down on that work. The question of inventory is essential. And I see our colleague from ALIF is online. I know a lot of projects of ALIF talk about inventories as well. And I'll keep my second slide for my second interventions. We'll talk about integration of new technologies. Thank you. Thank you, dear Sophie, for that reminder of those essential messages. Thank you for Marina as well for your intervention. And now I'll turn to Interpol.
And also a strong operational cooperation with Interpol as well the decades in the fight against illicit trafficking, capacity building activities, cooperation on projects recently, such as the UNESCO Virtual Museum on stolen cultural objects. From Interpol's perspective, we would like to know what are today the main operational priorities and challenges in strengthening international cooperation against illicit trafficking.
Dear Suna, thank you for giving me the floor. Thank you for this key question. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, good morning. Now, for sure, I think to be here today is the first step. Cooperation is the main key to fight illicit traffic of cultural property. Of course, as a police organization, for us to strengthen the cooperation and the collaboration to fight illicit traffic of cultural property, the main challenge is to have, and now we will listen again, the Interpol mantra, but for us is a really key tool, is to have in all countries a specialized police unit. When we are talking about illicit traffic of cultural property, when we are talking about illicit excavation in archaeological areas, when we are talking about illicit exportation of objects of art, we are talking about crime. Well, for us as Interpol, the first key cooperation to fight illicit traffic of cultural property is to have a strong, powerful, and consolidated network of specialized police units. Without the specialized police unit, unfortunately, is impossible from our perspective to think to really fight the criminal networks that are gaining money with our culture. It's totally impossible, because only identify, dismantle organized crime, and identifying the middlemen that are the ring between the first line of criminals and the final destination market, we can really stop the crimes against the illicit traffic. Of course, the cooperation at international level is fundamental from the police point of view, of course from the international organization, because we are working together to recognize an object of art, to have experts worldwide, to give to the police the main tool, the main capabilities to understand which kind of law can protect the object, which kind of documents the object should have to be exported, and so on, to see the different legal aspect, but also, I repeat, also to have an expertise on the object. Is it fake? Is it original? Well, cooperation at international level is important, but at the national level is a key tool to have a specialized police unit with dedicated national database to record stolen objects of art. We know for the analysis that we made, and I think all of you already know because it was discussed several times before, an object of art that is stolen today in France, in Italy, in Peru, in Argentina, in Russia, everywhere, can pop up in the art market between 1 year or 20 years. We have also situations of 40 years for an object of art to pop up in the market. What does it mean? That without a digitalization of this object in a national database connected with the Interpol stolen works of art database, is totally impossible, first to identify in art market the object, because it's really difficult. The object stolen can also change its shape, can be reduced by criminals. A painting can be really, a painting can become 3 paintings, can be cut, can be modified. Well, without a clear photo, a good photo, that is stored in the national and international database, is totally impossible to recognize. And this national database must be directly managed by the specialized police unit. Unfortunately, in the last decade, we saw countries that already had specialized police unit to reduce the number of the police, and in some cases also to delete the specialized police unit. We saw other countries, thanks also the United Nations resolution, the last one was in 2018, the number 130, thanks again Greece to support us in remembering to all countries to set up the specialized police unit, to give them a national database that at the end is only a computer, is a very cheap hardware. With the interconnection, with the Interpol one, the situation is really important. Well, please set up it. United Nations is remembering you every day to do it because it's written. We have several from 2017 with the resolution 2347. It was for the first time remembering to the countries to set up specialized law enforcement on authorities to do it. Well, please do it, because with this specialized police network, we can really fight, thanks to the international cooperation, the fight against the illicit traffic of cultural property is not only to bring at home stolen objects. If we only focus our attention in locate, seize, and bring back on objects, we have only doing a little part of the job. We need to identify criminal groups, to dismantle them, to try to stop the illicit traffic of cultural property. Thanks, Una, to give us the floor.
Thank you so much, Corrado, and this is also totally in line with the 1970 convention, and we are together, and I think also the Virtual Museum, with which we developed in partnership with Interpol, and where you also have the opportunity on the different web pages to report to Interpol, shows the cross-fertilization and the interconnection and the complementary mandates that we build our cooperation upon. So thank you so much, Corrado. I would like now to pass the floor to my colleague from UNODC, Murat Yildiz, on also to perhaps report on some ongoing projects of cooperation we have, building on our complementary mandates and coming from the fact that illicit trafficking is a crime and the intervention from Interpol, how also there is criminal justice responses. And please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Suna, and thank you, UNESCO, for inviting UNODC to report to the member states. I really value very high for being accountable to the member states, not only in Vienna, but also in all headquarters. And I'm really pleased back to be Paris and directly reporting to the member states about our cooperation. I have prepared some slides, some notes, sorry, but I'll also share my deep, honest observations about the cooperation between UNODC and UNESCO. Well, we have developed a very strong and increasingly operational partnership in the field of trafficking in cultural property with UNESCO. What makes this cooperation particularly important is the synergies between our respective mandates and expertise. UNESCO contributes to normative frameworks, the cultural heritage expertise and prevention approach, and global convening power through the 1970 Convention. On the other hand, UNODC being the custodian of the UN Convention on Transnational Organized Crime, UN Convention Against Corruption, and then recently adopted UN Convention on Cybercrime, contributes to criminal justice elements in frameworks and operational expertise through instruments of the just mentioned. As highlighted yesterday by the distinguished delegate from Morocco, strengthening synergies between the conventions becoming increasingly important. I mean, over the days that we've been discussing about the AI emerging technologies and the cyber element of trafficking cultural property. Therefore, it's important to bring UNODC into these debates, that how UNODC with the UN Convention on Cybercrime can help support member states. I fully agree with this perspective because trafficking cultural property intersects not only with heritage protection, but also with organized crime, corruption, illicit financial flows, and cyber-enabled crime, document fraud, and online trade. In this context, UNESCO and UNODC allows member states benefit from both normative and operational support under one increasingly coordinated work. You asked to give me concrete examples. I'm really happy to report that. With the generous financial support from the UK government, we thank a lot actually for the financial support coming through the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. The distinguished delegate yesterday mentioned one of the events that we have organized with the support and with the cooperation of UNESCO was the training of judges and prosecutors in Egypt and Lebanon. So this was really a particularly important program that we worked very closely together throughout the process. Now I just skip my official notes and I share my honest and direct observations. I don't want member states to think that UNODC and UNESCO cooperates based on emails. No, we work based on WhatsApp messages. We don't really respect full working hours. And Louise is just sitting on my back. She may complain later on that she was receiving messages from me saying that how we can work with the needs assessment, how we can go about our training. Before Corrado, Tiziana was heading the Interpol's work of art crime unit. He complained, as like his words, that he was speaking with me more than his wife. So you understand the level of cooperation. I don't want you to think that UNESCO, UNODC, Interpol, and other international and regional organizations are working on an ad hoc based cooperation. No, this is the past. What we do now, we work on a daily basis. On this program, we work together with UNESCO from the design to the implementation. Now we go into the evaluation and then taking feedbacks. I'm really very pleased to report, and we are very transparent in our accountability to show the evidences to all member states in Vienna, both also in Paris, that, for example, under the project that we implemented with the support of the UK government, we have conducted a thorough needs assessment in Egypt and Lebanon, understanding the authorities' needs in the prosecution, judiciary, law enforcement, and the customs. Needs assessment had several steps, and we started with designing a questionnaire. In my over 30 years of a professional experience, I never had such a very inclusive cooperation mechanisms. We come up with the backbone of the questionnaire, which was put online for participation, and I'm very happy to report that Egyptian prosecution and judiciary came up with 100 responses to online questionnaire. Every bit of the questionnaire, every question of what we put in the questionnaire was designed, formulated, written, with the inputs of UNESCO, Interpol, Frontex, OSCE, and also with the Italian Carabinieri. I'm very happy to report that. I mean, this is the level of cooperation that we do with UNESCO, with also other international partners. There is no time that we can waste working in silos and in our own ad hoc communication and cooperation mechanisms. So this is what we do, and this is not a theoretical exercise. This is very comprehensive assessments that we came up with. We are in the process of getting our NIST assessment report to be verified by national authorities. The outcome is going to be shared with UNESCO, with all the parties. Yesterday, the member states kindly adopted one of the agenda items on the training of judges and prosecutors. This is very much also in the radar of UNODC, which I call the UN's crime agency, where we heavily engaged in prosecutors, judiciary, and law enforcement in enhancing the national capacities to respond to the trafficking cultural property. I fully echo, I don't know, we don't have too much time to go into the details, but from UNODC perspective, the gap of knowledge, expertise, and know-how in the judiciary is much, much higher than any other aspects of the criminal justice sector. So we are also very happy to be a part of the UNESCO's massive online course on preventing trafficking cultural property. So this is my official note. My personal note is that my personal LinkedIn account is overwhelmed with the acknowledgement that I had very little in being part of this, the training program, but everyone is sort of commenting that how successful the training is. So this is one of the another evidences that also other colleagues have just covered. I believe this reflects a broad recognition that trafficking cultural property can no longer be addressed through isolated approach alone. So it increasingly requires coordinated action, connecting culture, criminal justice sector, law enforcement, border management, and international cooperation. With conclusion, I would like to congratulate UNESCO, Cyprus, and the European Union with a very successful advocacy effort that they put in 2 airports in Cyprus. This is, again, my personal note. It's not in my official speaking points. I got a little bit jealous because we didn't see UNODC logo in it. Well, it clearly presents the scanned luggage in the billboard saying that trafficking cultural property is an important topic. But again, very, very great success for this advocacy. I'm taking this back to Vienna as a great advocacy effort that I hope we can also learn from that experience. With that note, I thank you very much, and we look forward to cooperating with UNESCO further.
Thank you very much, Murat. On a personal note, thank you, and thank you also for your insights in the work of UNODC in our cooperation. And I'm sure that we will have also the opportunity later on with the discussion with the committee that they may react and also have further questions to the different projects you all mentioned in this first round. I would now like to close the first round of questions with our colleague from Alif. And l'UNESCO et Alif développent aujourd'hui plus.
UNESCO and Alif today are developing several complementary cooperations in the area of the protection of cultural heritage, in the area of emergency response, preventing illicit trafficking, capacity building, and support to professionals. And through all of these cooperation projects, dear Elsa, what are the main operational challenges that have been encountered in emergency situations, especially in order to prevent the risk of looting and illicit circulation of cultural property? You have the floor. Thank you very much. I do apologize for not being with you in the room today, but it's always pleasant anyway to see familiar faces. To answer your question, I would say that there are several operational challenges in emergency situations that we have to deal with. So sometimes it takes time to put things in place, but we're lacking time. And what's really difficult is to obtain reliable information at the beginning of a crisis. During the first weeks, we have to have a clear vision, and it's not always the case. So what is the what are the sites that are at risk? What objects have been removed? What areas are still operational? And for this, the field offices of UNESCO provide essential support. There's also the question of insufficient documentation of collections and sites. Without inventories, without photographs, lists of objects, reference data, and so on, as our colleague said, it's much more difficult to prove the provenance of a property and follow its removal. And then there's also the question of physical access and under safe conditions in very difficult situations. And also we need cooperation between the various players. This is essential with the national authorities, heritage professionals, NGOs, UNESCO, law enforcement officers, customs, the police, and so on. And UNESCO does fantastic work to coordinate in conflict situations. And to take up the local challenges and coordinate our actions. And we have a project which we will start implementing in Gaza for quick inventorying of artifacts with targeted capacity building of professionals, especially in the area of first aid and emergency documentation in the field, so as to strengthen data systems. And Sophie mentioned this through the use of international tools like Object ID, for instance. And the objective is to consolidate and standardize information within the national database of the Ministry for Tourism and Antiquities. This particular project is implemented through the UNESCO office in Ramallah. And as to prevention, what's really at stake is to try to not just be responsive and react to things, but rather to prepare things ahead of time, emergency plans, digitalization, secure storage, inventories, and so on. In many cases, they just come too late, and so I believe that there's a lot to be done here in the area of cooperation between all of us, so as to really organize prevention projects as much as we can. Thank you very much, Elsa. Thank you to Alif for this intervention and for having mentioned the various aspects. And thank you also for mentioning our Gaza project, which we have the honor of implementing through our office in Ramallah. Now, thank you very much to all of the panelists for this first round of questions. I would like to briefly inform delegations that we're going to have two panels this morning with our partners. We have a few more participants in the first panel than in the second panel, and therefore we're going to take a little bit more time, devote a little bit more time to this first panel before we move on to the second one. And now I would like to give the opportunity to our panelists with the second question, which will be shorter, to also echo the various interventions and respond to the various interventions of your colleagues, and possibly also to focus more on the prospects for the future and everything that you would want to add based on what you've already said in your first intervention. Maybe we can start with Ecom, Sophie. So in the role of that you can play, the future initiatives, reinforcement of cooperation, awareness building of the various publics, of the various audiences. So I give you the floor for this. Well, this is a very broad question. So again, I had to make choices in my answer. Now, since this project was mentioned yesterday by the Estonian delegation, I think, I wanted to devote some time to the project that we have together with the EU on PRISM. Now, PRISM is a project which brings together 7 countries, the Ukraine, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Slovenia, Romania, and Hungary. Now, the idea here, and I would like to echo what was mentioned before, is to stress prevention. We all see how cultural heritage requires our support. Fortunately, we have ALIF, we have UNESCO with the coordination meetings. Many things are being implemented, and Murad also mentioned that we have cooperation through less official channels, which is increasingly intense given the needs. As far as ICOM is concerned, even though we're always ready to be at your disposal, and the museum professionals are really vigilant and really willing to act, but still at ICOM we consider that our real strength is about prevention. And the PRISM project is actually going in this direction. Now, for this particular project, for instance, what we wanted to do was to be really close to our national committees and tell them, well, possibly we have some money from the European Union. What is it that you need in your country?
À quel point ce sujet de trafic illicite
is the issue of property trafficking known and not known in your country? There are different initiatives. Corrado mentioned it. You have specialized police unit. There are some training sessions underway. There are some solid sound inventory. So we tried in such cases to upgrade what existed. But in other countries, and I like the openness of our partners. Sometimes they say there is nothing, we don't deal with this issue. Well, it is on our political agenda. And in such cases, you need to raise the awareness of the public and decision makers so that some practical actions are undertaken to raise the awareness about the need for specialized units, the need for training. And in some countries, we will move towards specialization. Some have worked on exhibitions with stolen property. Sometimes there is work between customs professionals and police units. So you have to really put it high on the agenda to raise the awareness, to build and to move further. So I can't give further details. I also mentioned that I'll speak about new technologies. It is actually at the core of PRISM. You remember maybe that 10 years ago, ICOM and the EU established an international observatory. It was about bringing together experts to discuss specific issues, due diligence, provenance. Now we are speaking about artificial intelligence. How can we work on such issues? And the observatory is made up of a website with a database, but I should admit that, well, for lack of means, it was not really developed, but we kept it because we were hoping to get more funds, and that's what happened with the project with the EU. I know that you hear a lot about databases, but this one was already there, and we wanted a section for the public at large, because you have journalists, students, people who are not familiar with such issues. And unfortunately, they continue having informations which are not accurate, and sometimes they disseminate wrong messages. So we want to be really, there's this part which is really educational, and another section which is more detailed for experts. And to link up with UNESCO, you have the virtual museum, which is developing different rooms devoted to different issues. And of course, with the PRISM project and with the observatory, we try to supplement the virtual museum projects. We don't want to duplicate what is being done elsewhere. And this is very important, and I want to highlight the work done by the 1970 Convention Secretariat. We work in close cooperation to make sure that we do have tools which supplement each other for your benefit, and also to be aware of the projects which are underway and the funds available. Yesterday was the International Museum Day. So that meant a lot of work for us. This is a very important ICOM event. And the theme this year was very important. Museums uniting a divided world. This is a message that was launched. And yesterday, thousands and thousands of events were organized throughout the world in order to put forward this capacity of museums. I don't want to really stress their role, but museums raise awareness. They protect also. So once a year, it was important to highlight this work that is done by museums. And I know that, some museums are also working in cooperation with UNESCO field offices. And you have this synergy that Murad mentioned earlier on with a lot of eloquence. And I think it was useful and really appropriate to end with this message. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear Sophie. The virtual museum is a platform which aims to cooperate. UNESCO wants to cooperate with all its partners for the further development of this platform. So we've already started discussing with ICOM on the due diligence room. We are working on that. I'm sorry, I'll ask the panelists to maybe stick to 2 minutes speaking time, so that we can have discussions with members of the committee and participants.
We have heard from Sophie about security of museums, about online digital tools, and perhaps you wish also to complement what our colleagues said, and also perhaps to give an insight about ID art and further developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Suna, for this other key question for us. You know that 5 years ago, Interpol launched its first and only mobile application called ID Art. ID Art is really a full tool for private sector and police. Absolutely, is for both sides. And is structured on the object ID. The people can check an object of art in front of him to understand if the object of art was reported as a stolen, was reported as Interpol as a stolen, and he can make it as a visual search and manual search. And visual search, of course, is easier, but he cannot give the exact answer. We always are suggesting to use the manual search because it's absolutely simple. You don't need to be an expert. If you're in front of a painting, you need only to put painting and to move forward. It's absolutely not difficult to use it, and is according to the due diligence is really mandatory, because we have, of course, the Interpol Works of Art database, you know, is open also to the public since 2009, but unfortunately it's impossible to bring the computer to the flea market. You can ask to the National Specialized Police Unit when you are at home, you want to buy something that's in action house, mouse is online to know if the object was reported as a stolen, but you need to wait some times. With the mobile application, you can make it directly on the field. 6 in the morning in the flea market, you can check if the object was reported as a stolen. If it is stolen, or you think that it was one of the objects stored in the Interpol database, you can report to Interpol. Well, it means that it's for everyone, and really everyone can make this exercise of due diligence before buying objects of art to check if it was reported as a stolen. And this tool is available for everyone, is for free. You don't need to put your personal details. We want that everyone, also criminals, can use it. Right now we have 100,000 downloads of the mobile application. It's quite good. We are looking for something more, but also it's really important for make inventory for your own collection. There is the object inside. You can inventorize your object of art. If one day you will be victim of a theft, you can extract the PDF from the mobile application and send directly to the police. And the police will send to the specialized police unit that will insert in the Interpol database. It means that in less than 2 days, your objects of art will be at international level, and everybody can check if your object that is stolen was or not stolen. And I still a few seconds more soon, I apologize for it. And also it's important this moment of conflict worldwide because there is the site card. The site card can support expert and also civilian to inventorize archaeological sites or cultural buildings. It is really important to report this information, also extracting the PDF and sending with a simple email. Sorry if I was out. Sorry.
No, thank you very much, Corrado. I would now like to pass the floor to my colleague Alice. If you wish to react on the interventions of our colleagues or share some additional thoughts about the role of scientific evidence and analytical methodologies evolving in the fight against illicit trafficking. 2 minutes, I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much, Suna, and you can stop me, please. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and it's really great to see that our potential collaboration also for the future, because there are several interlinkages we can utilize. However, we have to say that we would like to work not only at activity level, not only at project level, but we would like to work together at programmatic level in a sustainable way. And this is calling for some support for the member states that would enable us to introduce all these ideas and formulate at a programmatic level between our organizations. From our side, as you are asking on the scientific methods, we are happy to work together, but we would also need your support, especially from the law enforcement colleagues, because we have to work in a different way when we are talking and analyzing evidence. And for example, from scientists, it is not that we just give results to our law enforcement colleagues in a form of an Excel file, but the interpretation of the data is extremely important, keeping integrity of the samples as well. So there are several aspects to explore together, and of course work together with UNESCO. We call them to help us to have real cases, work on real cases, not just some objects. And I think this would really be for the future, for a great perspective, but we want to work at a programmatic level and in a sustainable way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this important advocacy and a strong message on the importance of the cross-sectoral and cross-fertilization work. Perhaps, Murat, you would like also to complement shortly and to intervene.
Thank you very much. Well, from UNODC perspective, I think we have a solution to offer to the member states. As you know, that the UN Secretary General has initiated UN 80 to increase the synergies between international organizations, align the mandates, and not sort of duplicate the efforts, but reduce resources and have much greater impact. This is the best recipe for international organizations. I can't say that this is the best solution, but I have something to offer to you. I even came up with a number of copies for the member states to take it. We came up together. I mean, UNODC, UNESCO and Interpol under one framework, under one proposal. This is called Co-Action Against Trafficking in Cultural Property. This is a joint project, but I'm really grateful for the Republic of Cyprus who generously donated funds for this project. I really encourage other member states to take note of this joint effort and consider supporting it. Why? Because it moves beyond traditional coordination models. Perhaps for the first time, in an integrated manner, UNODC, UNESCO, and Interpol are not simply implementing separate activities in parallel, but working together under one coordinated framework with the complementarity of the mandates and mutually reinforcing expertise. Well, you know, my time is limited and Suna keeps finger on the microphone. I'll be very short. Well, too often, unfortunately, let's face it and speak really honest and openly, that international support in this field remains fragmented. One project focuses on prevention, the other focuses on law enforcement, and the another on judicial cooperation and international coordination, but criminal networks do not really operate in fragments. So therefore, the catch, this project, offers member states and the donors at a different model. What is that? A coordinated framework that's going to shed a light on the knowledge gap by providing in-depth research, operational cooperation, criminal justice capacity building, intelligence support, strategic analysis, and international cooperation. You have everything there. This is not a duplication. This is a strategic integration. And from a donors and member states perspective, why it's important? Because it offers greater coherence, greater visibility, greater efficiency, and greater impact. I don't think that we could have come up with something different. Now, we offer you that UNODC, UNESCO, and Interpol are hand in hand coming up with one proposal to address the trafficking in cultural property together and collectively. So this is not only a project, it's a model for how international organizations can combine complementary strengths to provide member states with more coherent, operational, and impactful support. With that, thank you, Suna. And again, I'm available for any further questions from the member states. I'm already having bilateral meetings with a number of them, but I would love to speak to you about this joint approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Murvet, and thank you also for mentioning catch and the fact that this also builds on our existing activities and strives to bring them further. And we will be glad to further give any details about this project together with Interpol that we elaborated so many years together. Now I would like to pass the floor back again to my colleague at Alif. Elsa, if you wish to perhaps to react, perhaps I switch to French again, et peut-être si vous souhaitez.
Perhaps you would like to speak about synergies which can be developed between our different initiatives in terms of training, international cooperation, reacting also to the intervention of the previous speakers. Let me pick up on what Sophie said about prevention. I think it's important to link up preventing trafficking and the protection of museums and collection institutions. Physically protected institution of museum means that there are hundreds and or thousands of property objects which are protected from trafficking. I think it's important, more particularly for civil society. I think we can do more. There are several projects which are under discussions. I'll have the pleasure maybe next year to give details. They're joint or coordinated training sessions. It's very important, supporting regional networks also, and supporting a documentation inventory, starting from the express needs of local players. And also maybe a word on Africa, because we signed an MOU. Aleph and UNESCO recently signed an MOU focusing on the African continent and we have several projects being developed, and I hope that they will soon be implemented in order to even work further. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for having mentioned this initiative on the African continent. It's within the flagship program for Africa. Now let me give the floor to the representative of UNIDROIT, Marina, to maybe close the intervention of the panelists to react to what was said, and also take 2 minutes to tell us how we can strengthen our cooperation in terms of awareness raising, ratification of conventions, and any other piece of information you would like to convey. We are an organization like UNESCO. We develop legal standards, and when conventions are developed, they need to be ratified. Our objective is universal ratification. UNESCO's convention is closer to universal ratification than ours. It's more complicated. Not ratifying a convention is not because people do not agree with the provisions. It's sometimes because there are practical issues. How do you go about implementing the convention? How do you adapt your domestic law and so on? So the link between ratification and capacity building is essential. We do that for legal specialists. We also have training activities with UNESCO, and thanks to UNESCO and thanks to ministries, Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the 5th year, we have organized a course for judges. We've spoken about prosecutors and so on, but when there is a claim by a state for an object in front of a court, you need to also train judges. So we have the International Program of Law Development. It's the 5th year for African legal specialists, lawyers, and they are informed about all the different legal provisions, procedure, when there is a ruling by judges, they have to be implemented. And I invite your delegations next year because in a few weeks this year's training session will start. It's 2 weeks online and 3 weeks in Rome. We had the same thing for Balkan countries, the Southern Partnership, and also Central Asia. So we invite you to take part in this.
Plaidoyer pour les décideurs, et nous le faisons au niveau régional avec les organisations régionales. Nous avons un très bon résultat avec la CEDEAO pour les pays d'Afrique occidentale. Nous les développons avec l'ASEAN, avec la SADC et d'autres, avec l'ICESCO de façon plus régionale. C'est très important. Et ça nous permet aussi, pendant ces formations, de parler de ce que j'ai appelé, que Sophie aimait bien, l'écosystème digital développé par nos partenaires parce que nous disons il faut exercer la diligence requise, mais comment? Ce sont nos partenaires qui développent les outils pour ce faire. La base de données NATLO de l'UNESCO, les listes rouges, les apps d'Interpol. Donc c'est tout à fait important. Et nous avons en commun avec l'UNESCO quelques parties du monde où les ratifications sont moindres, notamment l'Asie du Sud-Est. Et je terminerai par ça. Nous avons développé un centre de droit asiatique. Nous en avons aussi un pour le droit scandinave qui va se lancer, qui a déjà commencé à faire des MOOC, comme celui qui a été fait avec Venise, qui fait des cours d'arbitrage, qui fait de la formation. Et nous en avons un donc, pour le droit asiatique qui va développer, qui traduit dans les langues locales, ce qui est très important pour diffuser les conventions. Et nous allons évidemment associer l'UNESCO à cela. Et puis, nous avons une Ratification Task Force, parce que nous avons une dizaine d'États dont les parlements ont voté la ratification de la Convention, mais ne déposent pas les instruments et donc ne peuvent pas bénéficier. Donc nous allons faire ça. Et 2 points très rapidement. Un appel alors, nous allons créer pour la première fois UNIDROIT à un siège unique qui est à Rome. Mais au mois de novembre prochain, nous allons ouvrir un bureau à Hong Kong. Ça veut dire que pour l'Asie, nous aurons des collègues sur place qui seront beaucoup plus aptes et qui seront sur place. Et la conclusion, c'est un appel à vous. La Convention d'Unidroit, dans son article 20, dit que à la demande de 5 États parties, on peut organiser une conférence de suivi de la Convention. Malheureusement, nous n'en avons eu qu'une, c'était un peu le système de l'UNESCO avant, et je vous appelle donc à le faire, parce qu'Unidroit est une petite organisation, mais il faut absolument qu'on parle de comment la Convention est mise en œuvre avec tous nos partenaires. Et je vous remercie beaucoup.
Merci infiniment, Marina, et merci également donc, pour ces bonnes nouvelles. Et nous nous réjouissons de coopérer à travers notre bureau hors siège, également avec le bureau à Hong Kong, et à renforcer cette coopération aussi dans l'Asie-Pacifique. Donc, merci infiniment pour vos précieuses contributions qui a rappelé la force qui découle de notre collaboration et de nos mandats complémentaires. Je voudrais maintenant ouvrir la discussion et encourager les membres du comité qui souhaiteraient prendre la parole de nous faire signe. Nous avons 15 minutes pour un échange avant de passer au panel numéro 2. Est-ce qu'il y a des États du comité? Oui. Je vois la Turquie. Turquie.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. It was such a great pleasure to see the efforts which are so complementary to each other. Turkey wishes to highlight some important developments that it managed to achieve through the support of the international organizations who are present in the room at the moment, and I would like to start with ICOM. This year, Turkey was able to produce ICOM Red List of Turkey, and we are very much proud of this, let's say, achievement, because this may be the most simplest preventative measure one may take. And from our point of view, it is totally important still having this one piece of paper, just including very simple photos, in order to let the experts to identify if this object could be illegally taken. And I would like to prove it with experience. When our colleagues were examining a set of objects, which were kind of merged group, they identified very easily an object originating in Syria, owing to ICOM Red List Syria. So ICOM Red Lists are important to have at national level or regional level. This is already welcome, but also very important to be used after they are published. And we are very proud to have one and also use the existing one. So thank you very much. And also another thanks goes for very prompt actions of ICOM whenever we are in need of immediate expertise. For example, if our customs agent stops a dispatch or if there's a cargo or something, and if we need an expert from a certain country, it comes from ICOM in 10 minutes. So, and then we can get in touch, and I know how the amount of work that you are handling, but this is very much appreciated as it has a huge reflection on implementation. And as for the UNODC, it is great it's great to hear that we're on the same page when it comes to uniting the efforts, and I'm also very happy to talk about the project that UNODC and the Minister of Culture and Tourism of Turkey handling together with great support of UNESCO, I should underline, and I should also extend my gratitude to UNESCO, including the Venice and Sarajevo offices as well as the headquarters, because through this project we are aiming at continue from where the West Balkans project of UNESCO had brought the matter and handling it from that point and trying to achieve something more hands-on after having all the theoretical parts handled by the UNESCO EU project, now taking it from there and trying to do something more hands-on. And we are very happy to be the main donor of this project as well as the implementing partner, and we thank to all international organizations for all of their personal times. And just to give a feedback, we are at the same page, and I'm also seeing all of you more than I see my family, but it's just a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, and we are also very honored to participate in this, having participated in this project. I take perhaps another question quickly from the Republic of Korea.
Thank you all for your wonderful presentation, which provided us a very good opportunity to understand the current cooperation of UNESCO with its very valuable partners. I have a quick question regarding the cooperation with UNIDROIT, in particular concerning the practical application of the due diligence concept. Could you clarify if UNIDROIT currently maintains a database similar to how UNESCO provides the database of national cultural heritage law that compiles not only national legislation, but also relevant court cases from contracting states regarding the due diligence? If such a comprehensive resource does not yet exist, we would like to suggest its development in cooperation with UNESCO, sharing both legislative examples and judicial precedents would serve a very invaluable reference for other member states seeking to effectively integrate and apply the due diligence standard with their own legal frameworks. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Before passing the floor to to the panelists, and thank you very much, distinguished delegate from the Republic of Korea, for this question, I just would like to perhaps gather all the questions, and then we can allow our panelists to respond. I give the floor to Cyprus.
Thank you very much, and to all the panelists, extremely interesting interventions, and we really appreciate the synergies that are cropping up and be developing, and we want to say that Cyprus is very proud to be a main donor of the CATCH project. We also look forward to the project being supported by other member states, and we are confident that the sharing of practices and know-how between organizations, national authorities, and also research centers, which are extremely active in this area more and more. In Cyprus, we have many centers of excellency that are very active in developing AI and general digital know-how in order to assist national authorities in this field. These synergies are of vital importance, and also the synergies between conventions are also important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate, for this comment and support. And I now see that no other plate is raised. So I give the floor perhaps first to Marina to respond to the question, and then to ICOM and to UNODC. Thank you.
Thank you, Sana. And thank you very much to the delegate of the Republic of Korea for your questions. Unfortunately, for the time being, we don't have any database on due diligence. What, UNIDROIT is not, states parties do not report to UNIDROIT when they use the UNIDROIT Convention, so we don't have the information, although we ask for it. But I must say that this year, for the centenary, as I said before, we'll have a white paper assessing, and one of the assessments that we are working on is the assessment on the case law. And of course, the due diligence is there. We are searching also with the EU, because you know that the EU has taken exactly Article 4.4 of the UNIDROIT Convention, it's Article 10 of the directive, and they have a reporting a periodic reporting from the countries. So we try also to see this. And also in the working group on orphan objects, we have judges with whom we are working on what kind of due diligence elements would be accepted in court, or has been accepted in court. So this we will do. But this is also a room for cooperation, of course, with UNESCO, with the due diligence room of the virtual museum. And we already spoke that we need to enhance our cooperation on this. So it will be a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Marina. And perhaps I might just like to add that also when it comes to the court cases, we have included in our project to elaborate country overviews. We have invited states also to share with us court cases alongside updated national legislation. So we will, two court cases are indeed included in the Swiss profile, and we will be very happy to cooperate with UNIDROIT also when it comes comes to the Kaltnos database, on the work on the profiles in this sense. Thank you very much. Sophie and Murat, perhaps you wish to add something or on the intervention from Turkey, or just would like to allow you.
Juste pour la délégation de la...
For Turkey delegation, I would like to thank you for those words. I don't really have much more to add, and I just want to say thank you in Turkish. But thank you. It's very important to realize that the work on red lists is done by your museum professionals. It's the professionals from your countries who are engaged with it. It's on a voluntary basis most of the time when it comes to ICOM. So museum professional from Turkey, I'm also looking at Greece. Greece that has mobilized its skills and experience. So it's all thanks to you. We organized it a little bit, but you did the work. And every time we come here, we talk about the red lists. It is a flagship tool of ICOM, but whenever we're approached to develop a new list, we always talk about the red list as a reference. It's a very well-known tool, but we'll build on what already exists. So, for example, a country that doesn't have a strong legislation, a trained police unit, or training for a future professional, we won't just drop that red list and just artificially impose it. It's a complementary tool that adds on to existing ones. And for ICOM, the most important thing is to build on what exists and to listen to the needs. And usually the main need in a country is not a red list, it's a documentation work. And we mentioned it a lot already. And the security work with emergency plans, those are the top priorities for ICOM right now. But of course, we're always very happy to see and to hear that our tools work. Thank you.
Very quickly, thank you for the intervention by the Republic of Turkey, and also thank you for mentioning our joint initiative which started last week, as His Excellency Ambassador Yurtakul also mentioned yesterday. This is one of the greater examples of cooperation between UNODC member states and the UNESCO. As Ms. Boss just mentioned, this project is also implemented with the great support from the UNESCO HQ and also the UNESCO's regional center. Another thank goes again to Cyprus for being the main donor of the catch, and I just really would like to repeat again the call that we would like to invite other member states to support the catch project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much again to all the participants and also to delegates for the question, for this discussion. I see no longer any plate raised, so I would like to wish to thank you for this good first panel before we move on to the second one. And we are looking very much forward to our cooperation in the next year and to report to the next subsidiary committee and to have a lot of cooperation. Thank you so much. UNESCO's cooperation with regional organization play a pivotal role also in strengthening the global response to illicit trafficking of cultural property. While the challenges international in nature, trafficking routes, legal frameworks, enforcement capacities and dynamics often vary significantly across regions. And regional organizations therefore serve as essential partners in translating international standards into coordinated regional action and in fostering cooperation within the regions. So I have now the pleasure to announce the participants to this second panel on international cooperation with regional organizations. And I have the pleasure to invite Her Excellency Ms. Nancy Ovelar de Gorostiaga, ambassadeur extraordinaire et plénipotentiaire, délégué permanente du Paraguay auprès de l'UNESCO, en sa qualité de présidence pro tempore et du Mercosur culturel, à venir me rejoindre sur le podium.
Can you please join me? Thank you very much.
I also would like to welcome our two panelists that are online with us today. We have first Ms. Angela Azzori, Team Leader on Cultural Heritage at the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture of the European Commission. Please come. At the European Commission. Good morning. And Dr. Ataya, the center of the director of the CEAMEO Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts that is based in Bangkok. Without further ado, I would like perhaps to give the first question to our online colleague from CEAMEO SPAFA. Good morning.
Good morning.
It would be very valuable for our member states and delegates perhaps to better understand the role and missions and activities of CEAMEO SPAFA in relation to illicit trafficking and return and restitution issues in Southeast Asia. From your perspective, what are today the main regional challenges, developments and observations in the region, particularly when it comes to disasters, vulnerable heritage sites and trafficking risks? You have the floor, please.
Thank you. Good morning good afternoon from Bangkok, and certainly good morning for our colleagues in Paris. To respond to this question, I will divide it into two parts. First, I will talk a little bit about our roles, and then I will share about observation. So I have to say that most CEAMEO SPAFA's mandate and activities have been involved in preventing illicit trafficking and supporting the return and restitution issues in Southeast Asia. So let me share a short presentation for a better understanding of who we are, how we work, and what we do. So the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts, known as CEAMEO SPAFA, was initially set up as a project. Later, the government of Thailand decided to host the regional center, aiming to advance the awareness and appreciation of cultural heritage, promote and enrich archaeology and cultural activities, build professional competence in archaeology and fine arts, and underpin mutual knowledge and understanding among our 11 member states. Next, please. So what we are doing, according to the mandates, our work covers almost every type of cultural heritage. However, due to resource limitations and some constraints, we need to identify our priorities depending on the regional requirements and situation during each period. Our activities range from trainings, seminars, and workshops to producing publications and journals, as well as organizing academic conference. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. How we work. Under the CEAMEO umbrella, SPAFA is one of its 26 specialized centers, which are located around the region. These centers, as you can see from the map, these centers are categorized into 3 fields comprising education, science, and culture. They are coordinated by the CEAMEO Secretariat based in Bangkok. Our policy-making bodies is the governing board, consisting of the high officials in charge of archaeology or museums or heritage conservation or education from 11 member countries. On the other hand, we also collaborate with other CEAMEO centers for relevant subjects as the inter-center collaboration. Next, please. The involvement and contribution in preventing looting and illicit trafficking embedded in CEAMEO SPAFA's mission since the first center director, Prince Supat Biskun, you can see his picture in this slide. He played an outstanding role in repatriation and fighting with illicit trafficking, using his expertise in archaeology and history of arts on several occasions. I pick up 2 crucial examples of his trials and contribution. The first example is the stolen Buddha heads from a cave of Sitep, an archaeological site located in a remote area and seemed to be abandoned at that time. Later, it was set up as a historical park and recently inscribed into the Heritage List. He helps to negotiate with the collector who to get several pieces back to the authority. Again, when he was the SPAFA Center Director, he found the reclining Vishnu lintel, which is quite well-known cases, which was stolen from Thailand in the early 1960s and then exhibited in the Art Institute in the US. Then he worked with the Thai authority on the repatriation of this lintel. Next, please. So for more than 40 years since his period, various capacity building activities were organized by SPAFA, aiming to increase awareness and knowledge in legal matters, theories, and technical skills on the protection and management of heritage sites and objects from looting and illicit trafficking. In this picture, in this slide, you can see one of the crucial examples of our activities. It is a workshop on protecting cultural heritage in Southeast Asia, organized in Siem Reap, Cambodia in 2009, which is the collaboration with the Department of State, USA, and the US Embassy in Bangkok. We had 40 participants from Southeast Asia and from the US who work in the heritage field, Interpol, and FBI. Our accomplishment included a clearer understanding of the current situation of illicit trafficking in the mainland Southeast Asia at that time, and a closer collaboration with the US government on the prevention of illicit trafficking. Next, please. In the following year, 2010, the workshop on preventing and investigating on crimes at cultural heritage sites in Southeast Asia was also conducted. This time we worked with the Cultural Heritage Center, Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, the US Department of State, and the International Law Enforcement Agency Steering Group. It was a cross-sector workshop between heritage professionals and national police supervisors and focused more on technical and practical skills. 32 participants were equipped with the necessary knowledge on the investigation of crimes and the physical security of museums and cultural sites. I think that's perhaps give you an understanding about how we work and our roles in the region. So for my observation in the last 14 years, the situation in Southeast Asia has changed due to several circumstances, such as the beginning of ASEAN community in 2015, the digital disruption, especially the advancement of communication technology, the virus corona pandemic, political instability, and natural disasters. For illicit trafficking and looting, I observed that the headlines or major cases of theft from collection-based institutes in most media in the region has been reducing, but more news about repatriation. This should be clarified whether the number of crime really reduces or it is just less concerned than it was. Besides, the smuggling routes have changed as well. It was claimed that Thailand was the gateway for the trafficking in mainland China, in mainland Southeast Asia. Nowadays, because of logistic and transportation system development, such as seaport constructions, there are more channels to export these objects illegally, not just from Thailand. In addition, last year, SPAFA organized a training workshop focusing on interpretation in the museum and targeting museum workers. There were about 80 participants during the online sessions. One of the main issues for discussion among the young professional was decolonization. And also another observation is the regional cooperation through ASEAN network. Although the 1970 convention may not be ratified or adopted by all ASEAN member countries due to the national restriction and legislation procedure, bilateral agreement or collaboration for repatriation between the ASEAN country member becomes the measure often used and perhaps work well. My last point of observation and challenges is the high risk of looting and illicit trafficking during natural disaster events and civil turbulence. SPAFA has involved several post-disaster activities such as damage assessment and need assessment in the region, which have been affected from natural disaster and sometimes under the political instabilities pressure at the same time. It seems that relevant stakeholders and experts focus more on the direct damage and loss of heritage sites, buildings, or objects, while the secondary impact like theft or looting were less concerned. The critical aspect of this regard also in the lack of comprehensive documentation and inventory of heritage sites in the region. Even some heritage sites, damage assessment or repatriation needs a proper documentation to prove how much the heritage is affected or whether it is stolen or taken from this site. So I may stop my response to this question at this point.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hataya, and for your interesting insights and your contribution. And we very much look forward to cooperate with the regional center. Also, when it comes to the support and for the continuing advocacy for the universal ratification of the 1970 Convention. I would now like to turn to my colleague from Mercosur, Her Excellency. Le Mercosur représente une région.
Excellency, Mercosur represents a region where there is a very high level of ratification and engagement on the issue of the protection of cultural heritage. And in this particular context, it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about the role, mandate, and activities of Mercosur in terms of fighting illicit trafficking, return and restitution of cultural property, as well as the main regional priorities and challenges. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Suna. Distinguished members of the committee and dear observers. As a representative of the pro tempore chairmanship of the Cultural Mercosur, which is currently assumed by the Republic of Paraguay, it is a real honor to present to you the progress of our regional bloc. Mercosur is not just a mechanism for economic integration, it is also an area where we preserve the identity of our peoples. Our mandate is quite clear. We set up a technical committee for prevention and fighting illicit traffic of cultural property. And since 2012, this particular committee is the operational arm for the state parties, Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, and also the associate states, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, Guyana, and Suriname, who work in a coordinated fashion to achieve the same objective, namely protecting the integrity of our cultural heritage in the face of transnational illicit trafficking networks. As you can see on the slide, the Mercosur, the cultural Mercosur, is the result of a participatory construction between the state parties and the associate members within the committee. And our roadmap is based on 5 pillars that really demonstrate that regional cooperation is a tangible reality. Governance first, through a number of half-yearly technical meetings so as to align our national policies. Then there's the operational aspect. We have created a network of focal points in every country that issue alerts concerning the properties that have been stolen from each of our territories. And of course, we're aware that trafficking does not stop at the border. We also have training as a pillar because we prioritize the training of our customs and law enforcement officers. They are the first line of defense against illicit trafficking of cultural heritage. Restitution, which is based on mutual technical assistance in the context of international cooperation so as to facilitate the return of property towards their original communities. Institutionalization, we also stress that we have finished drafting the regional action instrument, which is a common operational and legal framework so as to harmonize our actions. And we believe that this is really a historic moment and step for the region. Now, what are our regional priorities? Our current priority is to implement the agreement on the protection and recovery of cultural property between member states and associate states of cultural Mercosur. This instrument really is a historic marker for the region. It consolidates coordinated action and exchange of information and mutual assistance mechanisms, reaffirming the current commitment of Mercosur countries so as to promote the protection of the cultural heritage and the principles enshrined in the Convention of 1970 by UNESCO. And in the same way, one of our priorities is awareness raising with the public, because a citizen who values his heritage is our best allies against looting. Thank you very much, Excellency, for this very rich presentation, and also the fact that you mentioned this very important cooperation agreement.
To our representative from the European Commission, Angela Azzurri. The European Union has progressively developed an important role in the fight against illicit trafficking, notably through regional regulatory frameworks, cooperation mechanisms, training activities, and support to member states in implementation efforts. The cooperation between the European Union and UNESCO has continued to expand through a number of joint initiatives and projects. And we would like to know from your perspective, dear Angela, how do you see the role and mandate of the European Union in this field today, particularly when it comes to the coordination with member states, implementation challenges, and cooperation with international partners such as UNESCO? You have the floor, please.
Many thanks, dear Sunna. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's really a pleasure for me to participate in this 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee of the 1970 Convention. The fight against illicit trafficking of cultural goods is crucial to protecting cultural heritage, collective memory, and communities' resilience. And this proves particularly true in crisis and conflict zones. Cultural goods can also be lucrative for organized crime and for crimes such as money laundering or tax evasion. This is why the fight against illicit trafficking has been a priority for the EU since many years, both from a policy perspective and in terms of action, with member states and with international stakeholders and partners, starting from UNESCO. And the current Cypriot Council presidency has made cultural goods trafficking a priority topic in the field of internal security as well as in the field of culture. From the policy perspective, our EU policy framework is widely developed and solid. And I would just like to give you an overview of what we have as pillars of reference and coordinated action on this. First, we have the two regulations of 2009 and of 2019 that respectively concern the export and import of cultural goods. 2009, the export, 2019, the import of cultural goods. And particularly worth a point of attention, the 2019 regulation, because under this regulation, there's the regulation foresaw an electronic system for the import of cultural goods, an ICG system. And the point of attention is because this ICG system is fully operational now as of the 28th of June of 2025. And it is now mandatory to submit import license applications and importer statements, as well as to share and store information between national authorities. Then, policy-wise, we have the 2014 directive on the return of cultural objects unlawfully removed from the territory of a member state. And then we have the 2022 EU Action Plan against illicit trafficking of cultural goods that focuses on the prevention and detection of illicit trafficking of cultural goods, on stronger law enforcement and judicial capacities, and on enhanced international cooperation and protection of cultural heritage. Then we have the Anti-Money Laundering Directive of 2024. And then last but not least, the recently adopted Culture Compass for Europe of November 2025, which sets the milestones for the whole culture sector within the EU, and which highlights under its third direction that combating trafficking in cultural goods is central to protecting cultural heritage and collective memory, and which highlights continued engagement from the EU and the Commission on this. Beyond policies, the EU concretely engages through actions that we deem priority for improvement in this area. First, awareness, cultural heritage sector strengthening awareness is paramount. Under the Creative Europe programme, the EU Creative Europe programme, the EU is funding the ICOM-led PRISM project that you just heard about earlier, and that will support development of preventive measures to secure museum collections, together with updating the observatory on the illicit trafficking of cultural goods. Then innovation and research, they are also of the greatest importance and priority. Funded through Horizon Europe, projects such as Anquise, Aurora, Enigma shape the horizon and set the direction for a future that capitalizes on new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, and satellite imaging, as an opportunity to improve provenance research, traceability, due diligence, and data interconnection across law enforcement and museums. Then other priority area for action, security and law enforcement. In this regard, Europol has a dedicated special point of contact for cultural goods trafficking, supporting investigations of EU member states and third countries into organized crime networks active in cultural goods trafficking. Eurojust is also supporting cross-border law enforcement cooperation in specific cultural goods trafficking cases. Then the Internal Security Fund, Police, has also funded projects on capacity building for law enforcement on cultural goods trafficking, and on the development of IT tools that support law enforcement in detecting trafficked cultural goods online and offline. And the cooperation in the fight against cultural goods trafficking is also fostered by the EU-supported European Multidisciplinary Platform Against the Criminal Threats, EMPACT, including cooperation with third countries and Interpol. Then again, an action priority area, the international dimension of illicit trafficking beyond European borders. As an example, the EU External Action Service, the EAS, is active in this sector through its CSDP missions that provide training for staff and for local authorities. And they're particularly active, particularly right now, also in Ukraine. Other examples of this international dimension of actions include the work carried out by the Commission through its international cooperation services and funds to strengthen capacities of local authorities and customs services in partner countries, for instance, in the Western Balkans, as well as in Egypt, the Maghreb, in cooperation with member states and with relevant international stakeholders, starting from UNESCO. Beyond this, the support to the fight against trafficking in cultural goods does not stop at measures that are only applicable to cultural goods trafficking. Several wider EU initiatives also contribute to the fight against cultural goods trafficking. For example, the Commission is working on strengthening the legal framework in the fight against organized crime, with a proposal for legislation to be presented at the end of 2026. Forward-looking, and as indicated in the 2025 Cultural Compass, the Commission will continue its engagement on the fight against illicit trafficking, particularly on the issues of traceability, due diligence, innovative technologies, and stakeholders' mobilization. It is essential to continue engaging on this matter, especially in relation to the importance of security and preparedness. It is a joint endeavor in coordination with member states, third countries, and international organizations, starting from UNESCO. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Angela, for this very inspiring and very interesting words on the frameworks, the priority actions, the different activities, and we look very much forward to strengthen cooperation with the European Union. And thank you very much also with regard to awareness raising on the 2019 regulation for your cooperation on the campaign that we display at airports and in public areas. And we look very much forward to interested member states and to further strengthen this campaign. Thank you very much. We have 20 minutes left before the end of the session, and I would very much like also to allow the interaction with the distinguished delegates. Perhaps a very quick second round, like 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, and then we will, in 5 minutes, we will pass the floor to the distinguished delegates for a short exchange. Perhaps I start with my His Excellency on my side. Sur la base de cet fort engagement régional, pourriez-vous nous dire comment la coopération...
On the basis of this strong regional commitment, could you tell us how cooperation and synergies between Mercosur and UNESCO can be further strengthened in coming years, particularly in the areas of regional cooperation, awareness raising, capacity building, and operational cooperation against illicit trafficking? Mercosur is facing multi-dimensional challenges, legislative asymmetry, and actually illicit trafficking use legal loopholes. Harmonizing legislation between state parties and associated states is a permanent challenge, so that our frontiers can actually protect against this scourge. We also have permeability of borders and training. We have complex borders, and we need tools in order to protect, identify in real time objects which need to be protected. We also have the legal market. We have the migration of illicit trafficking towards digital platforms and social networks. We need to develop our capacity in the area of cybersecurity for heritage within cooperation in private sector and international cooperation. Synergy with UNESCO is also important. Synergy with the Interpol. And one key perspective is integrating our property on the virtual museum of stolen cultural property and the virtual network of stolen objects of the world of UNESCO. That will give higher visibility, and it will be a better tool for a recovery. We also need regional instrument as a model, and we are planning a new regional agreement to serve as a cooperation model at the regional bloc. We also have audiovisual diplomacy and technique. We will create technical material for awareness, and we will also, under the convention, strive to have the right to protect audiovisual material together with UNESCO.
Very quickly, please, because I see that the time is advancing. Just perhaps in 1 minute, Mrs. Hadaya, could you perhaps just give a quick insight in areas such as disaster risk management and community engagement, and how you see that perhaps cooperation can be further strengthened and synergies with UNESCO's broader priorities?
Yeah, thank you. For CMOS buffer, actually, we are developing our 5-year development plan, which will be approved by the board and also the Council of CMOS ministerial level. This will be implemented in the latter half of next year. So according to the plan, we proposed setting up a climate and disaster advisory lab or a center to provide consultancy as well as professional services to our member states and to bridge and coordinate with our partnering organizations beyond the region for sharing and exchanging experience and expertise. Although we have been working with UNESCO offices in the region on several activities and projects, but through this center, I hope our collaboration will be closer and stronger. In addition, we certainly will continue to build capacity for Southeast Asian professionals on fighting with looting and illicit trafficking, as well as promoting the repatriation and decolonization. Besides, as sharing with UNESCO Bangkok, the publication, namely Countering Illicit Trafficking of Cultural Objects in Southeast Asia, which is capacity building guide and methodology developed by UNESCO Bangkok, will be one of the best fundamental resources for curriculum development. And also, if possible, together we can produce a guideline or recommendation on community-based or community-led approach on preventing looting and illicit trafficking in the context of Southeast Asia. We are also discussing that our media, including newsletter with nearly 3,000 subscribers, YouTube channel, and alumni network, can also disseminate and promote the output of UNESCO programs, priorities to heritage professionals working in Southeast Asia. So I think to conclude, I'm very pleased to express our commitment to a closer and more concrete collaboration with UNESCO. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taya. I think this gives a lot of ideas on also future cooperation, and thank you so much for these different examples that you have stated. Before opening the floor for discussion with our distinguished delegates, perhaps, Angela, would you wish to have a word when it comes to future cooperation, when it comes to strengthening cooperation with UNESCO? What would you like to add? Something you already mentioned, but perhaps I would also like to give you the floor for 1 minute to conclude.
Thank you, Suna. I'll try to be short, which is not my strength normally. UNESCO is a key partner for the EU. We are aligned in this fight on all levels. From a legal and policy perspective, all that we are doing and we have done is in line with the 1970 Convention, and UNESCO is a key partner in the 2022 Action Plan and member of our experts subgroup on art market that comes from the action plan. We've been cooperating closely together on a number of actions when it comes to awareness raising. Thank you, Suna, for raising that. I was planning to raise it now, but the campaign Protect Our Common Heritage, which was just recently launched in Cyprus in 2 airports, and it's still visible in Paphos. We are looking forward for further scaling up among member states in the EU. We've we've had a wonderful and successful project, and I may recall the fighting against the illicit trafficking of cultural property in the Western Balkans, which just recently ended. So way forward, continuing along these lines, continuing the successful partnership as much as possible, and the compass really sets the way forward, because as the EU and Commission, we are engaged to continue working on the fight against illicit trafficking, and our key axes are due diligence, traceability, innovative technologies, and stakeholders mobilization. And of course, this can't be done without UNESCO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Angela, and I would like to thank all the panelists for their very interesting interventions, and that show that in an increasingly interconnected environment marked by evolving criminal networks and limited resources, cooperation between UNESCO and the regional organizations remains indispensable to building effective, coordinated and sustainable responses to illicit trafficking of cultural property. Thank you so much. I would now like to open the floor and invite members of the committee and all distinguished delegates who wish to comment or to have a question to please raise the plates. We have some 5 or 7 minutes left, and I'm looking at the chair, so please, yes, I see Turkey. Please, Zeynep.
Thank you very much, Suna, for giving us the floor. And thank you very much to the panelists for their very intense interventions. I would like to ask a question regarding the recently enforced regulation of the EU regarding import restrictions. This was quite good news to us, as this was the only way to prevent illicit trafficking through prohibiting entering of these objects into EU territory or into any developed art market country's territory legally once they were exported illegally from their country of origin. So this was a very groundbreaking step from EU, which we are supporting wholeheartedly. But is there any measurable impacts already we are seeing, as the regulation is now enforced for a year, I believe?
Please, Angela, you have the floor.
Thanks a lot for the question. So what is being enforced for the past 1 year is the electronic system for the import of cultural goods in the EU. And we are gathering data about the implementation. So far, we know that, there's been a number of operators that have been registered, and a number of ICG-related documents that have been recorded, import license applications, importer statements, and so forth. We plan to have a more thorough analysis of data. We are collecting data for the time being, and we plan to have a thorough analysis in the year to come, at least of the first state of implementation. For the early implementation, to further build and develop the system as it's needed.
Thank you very much. Dear Angela and distinguished delegate from Turkey for her question. Je voudrais maintenant donner la parole au Royaume.
I would now like to give the floor to the Netherlands, who asked for the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Also, thanks from us to all the panelists and the information on activities from regional organizations. As Turkey, we would also like to elaborate further on the EU import regulation. We think that non-EU state parties could be approached from our sides for questions on the illicit or illicit origin of important cultural goods into the EU. And we think that it is of importance that non-EU state parties should be well informed on this regulation. UNESCO provides a broad platform and network that can be used for activities on this matter, which also the EU mentioned. It's a key partner. As an EU member state, we see it of utmost importance that the EU Commission cooperates with UNESCO and others on activities such as awareness raising and communication with countries outside of the EU for the further implementation of the regulation on the import of cultural goods. Close cooperation between UNESCO 1970 state parties inside the EU and outside the EU is a prerequisite to fight illicit import of the cultural goods into the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate, dear Flora, and I would like to take the opportunity also before passing the floor to Angela, if she would like to react, to say that within the campaign that we have launched, and we are very grateful also for the support of the Kingdom of the Netherlands for the campaign, we also foresee to develop it further, and also to give more information on our website, not only on the different posters, but also to give very practical information on the regulation, so that this is in complementary to the campaign implemented in airport and urban spaces. And we are also very much looking forward to, as I said, the Virtual Museum of Stolen Cultural Objects. It's a platform where we are looking very much forward to cooperate with all our partners within the different rooms that we will develop. And there is also the due diligence room, and there will also be spaces to give further information on these important regulations. Thank you. Dear Angela, if you would wish to react, perhaps.
It's well noted. I understood it more as a statement, but just to confirm that the Commission and UNESCO are closely working on this. See the campaign, but also see the participation of UNESCO as an active member in the subgroup on art market, which again engages the stakeholders of the art market in the fight against the illicit trafficking of cultural goods. And it's a co-creation and partnership that we have, this subgroup that stems out of the 2022 action plan. So just to confirm, yes, definitely, we are working together because it's a joint endeavor. And we can't go fully alone on this fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Angela. Indeed, absolutely. And also when it comes to the capacity building activities and trainings that we organize, our cooperation is very important. We have landed on time, and I would like to really thank very much our dear panelists from this regional organizations panel. So Mrs. Angela Azzuri, Dr. Hataya. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I didn't see the plate. Switzerland, sure.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a comment to build on what was said by our dear colleagues from Turkey and the Netherlands. Switzerland considers it is also important that when we talk about cooperation, we think about countries that are not members of the European Union and they do not source countries, but important markets like Switzerland, for example, would be very happy to be involved in discussions and surrounding works. Thank you. Yes, apologies for not seeing your flag here, and we also, yes, looking very much forward the cooperation with Switzerland with the upcoming activities in September with that dialogue that will take place in Switzerland. Thank you very much. I don't see any other flags up, so thank you very much for all the participants. Mrs. Ataya and Your Excellence, Garanciaga, Ambassador and Delegate and Permanent Delegate for Paraguay at UNESCO. Thank you for your comments and your enlightening presentations. I think we can applaud them.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you. So this panel is now concluded and we'll continue with our agenda. I can see that our chairperson is back here on the podium.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to the Secretariat, to Suna, for this impossible mission that you dealt with excellently. There are two things that I think are quite important in more of a general approach. This discussion highlighted how here we live out and show the importance of UNESCO 80. We see the synergies within the UN systems, with the UNODC, and Interpol. So that's the first point I wanted to highlight. And the second one is how we work within a network of partnerships. Partnerships is something that UNESCO needs to strengthen in the future, even more so than in the past. And at the same time, we realized that this partnership ecosystem would not be possible without UNESCO at the core of it. So thank you again for these enriching conversations. So before we continue with this item, the committee is invited to consider the priority themes that could be included. So I'm now inviting committee members to suggest proposals for themes. I wouldn't want to give the floor to Switzerland first, but if no one else wants to take the floor, I will have no choice. So Switzerland, you have the floor. Mr. Chairperson, thank you for giving the floor to Switzerland, and certainly for the last time today. In these difficult times, it is very important in a multilateral context and on these complex issues to have enough time for priority themes. That is why Switzerland suggests to only talk about 1 or 2 priority topics for our next session, so that we allow enough time for these important discussions. We would like to suggest as a priority area a discussion on cooperation between source state and market state, particularly in perspective of capacity building and concrete and deep cooperation in specific cases. Switzerland is convinced that it is only by working closely together and that we'll succeed. Thank you. Could you maybe repeat the topic that you are suggesting? Yes. Cooperation, concrete cooperation between source states and market states, particularly in regards to capacity building, raising awareness, and concrete cooperation in specific cases. What could be interesting initiatives between these two groups of states? Thank you. Azerbaijan.
Chairperson, we would suggest digital technologies and illicit trafficking, if it is possible, because as we know that illicit trafficking increasingly takes place online and evolves faster than traditional regulatory mechanisms. State parties would benefit from discussing both opportunities and risks associated with emerging technologies. So digital technologies and illicit trafficking, if it is possible. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Turquie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. We strongly support both proposals from our Swiss colleagues as well as from Azerbaijan. There's one thing that we would like to mention, though, if you would find it timely. We are appointing priority topics, but we are not adopting any decisions on them. We are listening great presentations from experts, but we are not deciding any roadmap for future on that priority topics. If they are prior, they need action. And actions are identified by resolutions at intergovernmental fora. So that's why maybe for next committee that could be considered, and we also agree that 4 priority topics are a little bit too much to deal with in depth, and because of many topics we don't have enough time to discuss. It's always having a rush, so that's why we also support the proposal from Swiss delegation to keep it to, if it's also agreed by other members of the committee.
Merci beaucoup, la Turquie.
Thank you, Turkey. Indeed, I think if we had more time for each topic by only discussing 2 topics, we might have more time to also discuss actions, follow-up actions, and an operational monitoring of these priority topics, with eventually a decision, indeed. Thank you. So can I consider that these 2 topics have a majority among the member states? And maybe we need to work on the wording of these themes, and the Secretariat will be tasked with it. Thank you very much. I propose now that we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 11, date and place of the next session of the Subsidiary Committee. The Secretariat has informed me that given the availability of the meeting room, the proposed date should fall in the second half of May 2027. Is there any objection in meeting in the second half of May 2027 next year, here at the headquarters of UNESCO? I don't see any objection. So I consider, well, let's first display the decision on the screen. It is decision 14.SC11.
First half of May. Et l'anglais aussi. Mois de mai. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. So we'll correct the English and French version. Very well. So decision 14.SC11 is adopted. Now I would like to invite the Secretariat to display on the screen the list of decisions adopted during this session.
On voit tout le
So you can see all the good work that we've been doing. So we've come to the end of the list of decisions. And the decisions of the 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee are adopted as displayed on the screen. Thank you. Now, there's another impossible task that needs to be done, which is the oral report of these 2 days, day and a half. And I'll give the floor now to our rapporteur for this oral report, Mrs. Susana Garduño Arana. You have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Mr. Chairperson, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present the oral report of the 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee to the meeting of states parties to the 1970 Convention. The 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee was opened by Krista Pickett, Secretary of the Convention, on behalf of the Director General of UNESCO. The committee then proceeded with the elections of its bureau, with His Excellency Mr. Benedikt Wechsler from Switzerland as chairperson, Estonia, the Republic of Korea, South Africa, and Lebanon as vice chairpersons of this 14th session, and myself as rapporteur. The committee adopted the agenda and timetable of the session without amendments. The summary records of this 13th session of the Subsidiary Committee were also adopted, and the committee heard the oral report of the rapporteur of the 13th session. This was followed by the presentation of the report of the Secretariat on its activities between sessions, which gave good input for a rich discussion during which 38 member states took the floor. Several delegations underlined the importance of the Virtual Museum of Stolen Cultural Objects as a key platform to raise awareness in the fight against illicit trafficking and encourage the Secretariat to continue its development. Member states also emphasized the importance of universal ratification and of sharing national legislation for inclusion in the Cult Net Laws database, both activities which showed progress during this period. Moreover, the challenges of protecting cultural heritage in times of emergencies, the links between the fight against illicit trafficking and the full enjoyment of cultural rights, as well as the growing challenges posed by online trafficking, including on social media, were all subjects raised more than once. Delegates underscored the importance of the Judiciary Initiative, the toolbox for fighting online illicit trafficking, bilateral agreements, and the newly launched MOOC. Cuba highlighted the impact of the economic embargo imposed by the United States, noting that it directly affects its national capacities to implement the 1970 Convention, and asked this to be included in the oral report. The decision on this item was adopted with 2 amendments, which meant 2 additional paragraphs. One, recalling the importance of fighting illicit trafficking for preserving the identity and traditions of peoples and communities, and the other referring to the proposed establishment of a Category 2 center dedicated to the fight against illicit trafficking of cultural property in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the implementation and strengthening of the Convention, the committee examined the report on the finalization of the draft periodic reporting form. Several delegations commended the inclusive work undertaken by the Secretariat in alignment with the overall results framework and welcomed the progress achieved towards a more flexible and forward-looking tool, better adapted to reflect national realities. Delegations also welcomed the inclusion of references to model provisions for the prevention and fight against illicit trafficking of cultural property and highlighted the importance of the national reporting exercise for identifying capacity building needs. The decision on this item was adopted without amendments. The committee also considered the progress report on the implementation of partnerships and communication strategy. Several delegations praised the virtual museum, including the launch of its Spanish version, as well as the awareness-raising campaign for airports and urban spaces. The committee also underlined the importance of enhancing technological tools and welcomed the Secretariat's efforts regarding the fight against online trafficking. Several delegations further commended the financial contributions made during the reporting period, both through additional appropriations to the regular program and through support to the fund of the 1970 Convention, stressing the need for ensuring the sustainability of resources. One delegation proposed using the 1970 Convention Fund to raise awareness of the revised International Code of Ethics for Dealers in Cultural Property, and emphasized the need to further reinforce cooperation with partners. The decision was adopted without amendments. The committee then turned to its priority topics. On ethics and scientific responsibility, the expert Ana Wene Diaz Soares highlighted that unprecedented cooperation mechanisms and technological advances are strengthening this fight, while stressing that the loss of cultural property entails scientific, spiritual, and historical costs. She also emphasized the ethical responsibility of the scientific community, notably through transparent and independent provenance research, illustrated by concrete restitution cases from Brazil. She also identified good practices and future directions, including stronger ethical standards and greater involvement of source communities, calling for more inclusive and participatory approaches, such as indigenous perspectives. Regarding capacity building with particular focus on judges and prosecutors, the expert Andrea Cayley stressed the lack of specialized professionals in the judiciary systems and underlined that effective action against illicit trafficking depends on judges and prosecutors' understanding of both the legal framework and the nature of cultural property. She underscored UNESCO's role in setting standards for training and education, and the importance of strengthening this sector's capacities to ensure accountability, particularly in conflict-affected contexts. Delegations stressed the need for continuous training, including the development of online courses, as well as the importance of exchanging good practices. The presentation on the social values of the return of cultural property provided by Caroline Devian approached the return and restitution from a community-based perspective, expressing the strong link between cultural objects, territories, and indigenous knowledge. It showed that restitution processes vary widely depending on political context and actors, and can support cultural revitalization and the restoration of community ties. Also, she underlined that restitution contributes to a broader process of decolonization and is transforming museum practices and the place of cultural objects in societies. In his video presentation, the expert Simon Mackenzie highlighted that the fight against illicit trafficking requires engaging societies through comprehensive approaches, combining legal, physical, social, and economic crime prevention measures. He emphasized the key role of local communities and indigenous peoples in safeguarding cultural property, notably through empowerment, participation, and equitable sharing of the heritage benefits. We finished the first day. Now, on the second day, and under the international cooperation item, the committee engaged in substantive exchanges with key technical partners. Their representatives described the latest initiatives their organizations were working on and the cooperation avenues available to member states and its institutions depending on each sector. There was a recognition across the table about the ongoing and more sophisticated methods for illicit trafficking of cultural objects, and therefore the need for better cooperation and the use of cross-cutting technology for addressing them. The need to continue the development and the use of higher ethical codes and the importance of allocation of resources, both human and financial, were also among the common denominator of their presentations. The EAEA emphasized the growing role of nuclear science analytical techniques in provenance, research, and authentication of cultural property, while UNIDROIT reflected on its long-standing cooperation with UNESCO, stressing the importance of complementary frameworks for orphan subjects. ICOM underlined capacity building, due diligence, and awareness raising amongst museum professionals, and Interpol focused on operational challenges, law enforcement cooperation, and the development of digital tools, such as the ID art application. UNODC highlighted the increasing joint initiatives and the importance of coordinated criminal justice responses, while ALIF drew attention to challenges in emergency contexts. Important to highlight the inter-organizational collaboration, like the initiative mentioned by UNODC with UNESCO and Interpol, called CATCH, which exemplifies the ongoing international collaboration and the complementarity of mandates. On the second panel, the committee heard about the current work of regional organizations. CAMEO, SPAFA, emphasized the challenges related to disasters, vulnerable heritage, and community engagement in Southeast Asia. Mercosur stressed ongoing regional coordination, strong legal commitment, and the need to further strengthen cooperation and capacity building through a new regional agreement. And the European Union underlined its regulatory framework, prevention efforts, and cooperation with UNESCO. It also highlighted, as other speakers, how Cyprus made this a priority subject of its EU presidency, which has proven to have raised the level of awareness among the wider public. On item 11, members of the committee indicated that 4 priority subjects could be preventing committee members to have a more in-depth discussion. Therefore, the committee agreed that it would be reduced to 2, and the proposed subjects were cooperation between source states and market states, particularly in regards to capacity building, raising awareness and concrete cooperation in specific cases, and digital technologies and illicit trafficking. It was also decided that the next sessions would be during the second half of May 2027, here at UNESCO headquarters. Dear members of the committee, this brings me to the end of my oral report, but not before thanking you, Mr. Chairman, for your kind and swift leadership, which has led us to finish our agenda on time, to the Secretariat, Director Picat, and all of her team, which clearly work very hard to provide the membership with the results we have asked in previous sessions. Thank you very much. And to the members of the Committee, Observer Delegations, and the experts and panelists for our fruitful discussions. I thank you. Muchas gracias.
Madame Rapporteur.
Mrs. Rapporteur, thank you very much for this report that very faithfully echoed the work of the session. I think that we made a very good decision to elect you as Rapporteur at the beginning of the session. And I would like now to invite the Secretariat to say a few words by way of conclusion. Ms. Picat, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, ambassadors, members of the committee. As this 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee comes to a close, I would like to express on behalf of the Secretariat our sincere gratitude for your commitment, constructive engagement, and valuable contributions during the past 2 days, a day and a half. The session has once again demonstrated to us the critical importance of the Subsidiary Committee. And of course, your guidance reflections, insights will guide us as we continue the implementation of the 1970 Convention. We have spoken about the importance of promoting the universal ratification, capacity building, supporting countries affected by emergencies, advancing the return and restitution, addressing online trafficking, mobilizing youth and communities, expanding public awareness. And we are particularly pleased to hear your strong support to the flagship initiatives that UNESCO has initiated, notably the Virtual Museum of Stolen Cultural Objects and the database, the Nat Cult Laws database. I would encourage you, before you leave UNESCO, to also go and visit the stand that is just behind the door, and you will be able to experience the virtual immersive experience of the virtual museum. We also had your endorsement of the periodic reporting form, guidance on the partnerships and communication strategy. I won't go into detail because the rapporteur has just given us a very insightful summary of the discussions, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank those member states, members of the Subsidiary Committee, who have expressed their support to the work that UNESCO does, also through financial contributions, notably Brazil, France, Greece, Turkey, the Netherlands, and of course we hope that many more countries will continue the support that is critical in the times of the financial restrictions. Your discussions and reflections were also nourished by the interventions of experts on priority topics and our partners from international and regional organizations with whom we have forged, as you see, a very intimate and constructive relationship. And I would like to also, of course, express my thanks personally to all of those colleagues who have traveled to Paris or have come to UNESCO to follow the discussions and also share with you our collaborative efforts that are already ongoing or that are yet to come. A special thanks go to the chairperson for having guided the session with professionalism and wisdom. It's already the first time that I have a pleasure of working with the ambassador, and we know always that the session finishes on time, and that everybody is on focus, so thank you very much for that. Thank you also for our rapporteur for this very thoughtful, insightful oral report that really captured in the essence of the past 2 days. Thank you everybody, members of the committees, observers, for having participated in the discussions. Also, of course, to the Secretariat team, my team, who is here in different parts of the room, but also those who are behind the windows, who have accompanied us also in the preparation of the documents and making sure that this session was, I hope, useful and informative. And I want to finish by really reiterating the Secretariat's commitment to continue the work with your encouragement, with your guidance, and to express also our pleasure at the prospect of seeing you again in a year's time. Thank you very much.
Alors, c'est maintenant mon privilège.
It is now my privilege to thank everyone. We have now reached the end of this 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee. But before I thank you all, I would like to say 2 things that came to my mind in the course of these 2 days. Now, we ask UNESCO to focus on its main mandate, which is preservation, prevention of conflicts, preservation of peace. And I think that the work of this committee and of this convention demonstrates this very well in 2 ways. First of all, with the restitution of cultural property, And by limiting illicit trafficking, we can build mutual understanding between peoples and having societies that are less prone to war and conflicts. And secondly, if we manage to do this, if we have fewer conflicts, fewer wars, there will be less potential as well of illicit trafficking. So clearly, the work that we do here contributes to the very core, the very heart of UNESCO's mandate, and contributes to UNESCO for the people. And it shows that our work is very relevant. So once again, I would like to thank all of the committee members. I would like to thank the Bureau members, the rapporteur, the delegations, the observers, and the partners for their constructive participation and their ongoing collaboration throughout the session. I would like to also thank the Secretariat for its efforts in the preparation of this session and for its support to our work. And I think that this deserves a second round of applause.
Et il me suffit juste.
And all I have to do now is to officially declare closed the 14th session of the Subsidiary Committee.